we're going to be taking care of learning our selection tools. So what I'd like you to do is open up this document. I've saved it to your folders. Then I want you to zoom in on the first rectangle, the red rectangle that's on top of the orange. At that point, you'll notice that in your layers panel, please pull that out. You'll see you have one background layer right now. What we're going to do is we're going to take things from this background layer and we're going to copy them onto their own layers, or cut them out onto their own layers. So we're going to right click here, right below the move tool, you'll see the rectangular marquee tool. We're going to click on the rectangular marquee tool. Now for all these selection tools up at the top, you will see 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways of making selections. This one is a brand new selection. This is an add to, this is a subtract, and this is an intersect. You'll also see that there is a feathering option at the top. Let's keep that 0 for now. That would soften the edge, but we don't want that right now. And style, we'll keep it normal. And we'll work on this select and mask later. So for now, just go to the new selection, 0, feather, rectangular marquee tool, and what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag from the top corner down to the bottom. Now you notice I'm a little bit off there. I'm going to do it one more time. For the purpose of this tutorial, it does not have to be absolutely perfect, but just get the best idea that you can here of what's going on by clicking and dragging from the top corner to the bottom corner and then let go. Once you've done that, you'll see these little look like marching ants that are walking around. Those are your selection lines. You're going to right-click, layer via cut. It's going to cut out that shape onto its own layer, and you see right there on layer 1, it now has that box. If I hide the background, you can see the shape is by itself on its own layer. All right, I'm going to turn back on the background. I'm going to click on the background layer because that's where the shapes are, and then I'm going to move down to the circle. Next tool on the list here is the elliptical marquee tool. We're going to click on elliptical marquee tool, same settings as before. What I want to do now is I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click and pull to create a circle that I think is about the same size. And then I'm going to let go. Now you notice it's a little bit off. That's okay. You can click in the middle with the left part of your mouse, click, and you can move it around. Now you notice even if I center it, it's still a little too small. It's not matching up perfectly. You could take any selection at the top by clicking select, go down to modify, and then you can go to expand or contract if it's too big. But in this case, I want to expand it. So I'm going to go to expand. And then it asks you how many pixels you want to go past this. So I'm going to do 15 just to see what it looks like, and I'm going to hit OK. Now that was obviously way too much, so I'm going to go to edit and undo. We'll try one more time. Somewhere in between expand, I'm going to say 6. So that kind of pumped it out a little bit. All right, let's go back a little bit and contract. This is just one way to change pixels. So I did 2. Now you notice that matches up pretty nicely. I'm on the background layer. Here's my selection. I right click, layer via cut. Now that one's on its own layer as well. I hide the background. You can see it by itself. Okay, turn back on the background. Click on the background layer. I'm going to zoom out for a moment. The next one that we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on this shape right here. So for this one, we're going to go below. So not this set of tools, but the next set of tools here. It starts with lasso, polygonal lasso, and magnetic lasso. We're going to choose the polygonal lasso for this. We're going to click on that. Same settings as before. Brand new selection, 0 feathering. Anti-alias is on. That's fine. We'll discuss that later. We're going to click here, and we're going to let go, and then click again at the corner. So we're going to click, and we're going to click, and click, and click, and click to close it up. There it is. Right-click, layer via cut. Now we got 3 shapes all by themselves. Okay, back to the background layer. Select the background layer. Now we're going to do this burst with the same exact tool. Same tool, polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to make a couple of mistakes on purpose though. If I click the top corner, and then I let go and I click the inside, and I click the outside and the inside. This is what I want you to do for this one, so just follow along here. If you make any mistakes, so imagine that I'm going like this and everything's looking good, and I get to about here and all of a sudden I mess up. And I didn't mean to, and I missed a whole piece of this. Or I went like this, and I messed it up. So you can see the selection is way off. I've missed a couple of pieces here, and I went too far on this side. That's what these buttons up top are really for. So here's the Add button. So the first button here to the I have my mouse on, that's going to let you add. So if I click like this, and then I add in, basically making a new selection of the pieces that I want to keep. It adds that piece. If I want to subtract, I hit the next button, which is right here, the subtract button, and I can click and make a selection of the area that I want to keep. That I want to get rid of, I'm sorry. Okay, on the background layer, right click, same step, layer via cut it out onto its own layer. So if I look from afar right now and I hide the background, this is what I've gotten so far. All right, next, move back to the background layer. this time we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to go to the magic wand tool. Now with the magic wand tool, same thing, same button up top for a new selection. We're going to do point sample, tolerance of, let's say, a 40 for now. Anti-alias and contiguous on. We'll talk about those things later, but you'll see how they work as we move on with our selections. What I want you to do is just click the blob shape, the red blob that's on the yellowish kind of background here. And you'll notice it grabs the entire shape very quickly. We're going to then right-click, layer via cut. I'm going to go back to the background. Now over to here. Click 1. Now if I want the rest of the paw, I hit the Add button up top, or I can hold Shift on my keyboard. And I add the rest of the pieces. Now, you might be asking, why can't we just use this for all of them? And there's a reason. I made these very simple by making them solid reds on top of different colored backgrounds. But later, you're going to notice we get into images where the background and the figure that you're trying to cut out are very similar in color, and this tool will not work at all. So that's why we learn all of them. You'll see as we go. Right-click, layer via cut. Okay, back to the background. Next one, quick selection tool. Very similar. It has a brush size, just like a regular brush. You can make it bigger or smaller. You can make it harder or space it out a little bit more. You can use pen pressure, which we don't have connected right now. And you click and you kind of drag. And it does the same basic step. Right-click, layer via cut. Back to the background one last time. Click and drag. And now I had the Add button selected right up here at the top. Auto Enhance on. This is really just the computer seeing the difference between the colors of the red and the green that are behind it. It would do the same for any of these. Right-click, layer via cut. All right. Back to the background. Hide the background for a moment. Check and see what you've got. You should have 8 shapes so far. Turn it back on. All right, so now we're getting a little bit more complicated. We're going to get to the KD and the Steph Curry one at the bottom. So how do we do this? If you try to use the magic wand tool for this, you'll notice that it takes little areas of color. Now I clicked on the blue here, so it grabbed the blue color. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so you notice when I clicked on it with the magic wand tool, it grabbed this little area. Now the higher the tolerance, if I did it again, it grabs a little bit more. When you want to get rid of a selection, by the way, go to Select and Deselect, and it'll take it away. So this tool really won't work for this area. What I'm going to try for this one instead is, first I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool just to cut out the whole shape here. So I'm just going to go like this. Click, drag to create the whole piece of him. I'm going to right-click, layer via cut. So that means if I hide the background, you can see this piece is by itself on layer 9. I'm going to then zoom in, and what we're going to do is now use the magnetic lasso tool. Up at the top, new button, 0 feather, anti-aliasing on. You can keep the width 10, contrast 10, frequency 57. We can mess with these settings a little bit, and this is the tablet pressure pen, which we're not working with, so you can keep it off. And all you do, you see the little arrow right there. All I'm going to do is click once, and then I'm going to slowly follow the edge of the face. Now, every so often, I can help it out by clicking a little bit, and you're going to follow your way down. I'm clicking to kind of help it out a little bit. The computer will do most of the work, but every so often, you're going to have to give it a little click so it knows the edge. Now, when you get to the bottom here, hold the space bar, turns into the hand tool, click and drag up a little bit, let go, and continue. When you get to the bottom here, you can kind of go straight across the bottom and then back up on the side. Now, if you mess up like this, and I messed up, the nice thing about the magnetic lasso tool is that you can hit delete on your keyboard and it will go back a dot every time until you're back where you want to begin, and then you can continue from there. Remember, when you do these selections, you should be as close up to your image as possible. Hold the spacebar, click and pull. Now I'm a little far away right now, but I'm doing a pretty good job here, and I'm going to close it back up to where I started. You'll see a little circle telling you you're back where you began, and you click it, and I have a pretty nice selection. Now there are a couple of little mistakes here. You can see I missed a little part of his head, little part of his head. Maybe I missed some of the bottom here at the edge. Now we can switch to any tool or stay on the same tool and add by hitting the add button. So for example, I could use the regular lasso tool here, which just draws like a regular pencil, and you can add. So if I go down to the bottom and I click and I drag like this, I'm adding that piece, or I add this piece, or I add that piece, right? Same thing at the top of the head. If you look closely, you see I missed some hair. So I can just kind of add that piece, or add this piece, wherever you think it really should be, whatever you missed. And if you need to, you could always subtract. Okay, so I have that really nicely selected. I'm now going to right-click Layer via Cut. And now you can see the difference between layer 9 is the background piece and layer 10 just has him. So I don't really need this background anymore, that's on 9, so I'm going to click, drag, and drop it to the trash. Okay, very nice. Turn back on the background, click on the background. This time we're going to do the same thing for the rectangular marquee tool. We're going to grab Steph here, just click and drag, right-click, Layer via Cut. Now we're going to do this one a little bit differently than the rest of them. And here's what I mean. We're going to hide the background. Matter of fact, let's hide all the other ones just so we don't get confused. Let's zoom in a little bit on this one. I'm going to zoom in about there. So now you'll notice on your screen it's a little fuzzy. I made it like a low-res file just so it would save quickly for you. But we want to select this. But we want to use a different tool than any of the ones that we've used so far. You will notice that if you try to use the magic wand and you select, you're going to get this kind of a thing going on. You could try quick select, a little bit better. It'll do a pretty nice job, but you'll still have to go in and fix it. But you can try that. That's another option for you. What I'd like to show you in this one is the select and mask button. So if you click on this, you're going to notice two new boxes pop up. One that says properties and then some new tools here on the side. Now what we would like to do basically is, I'm going to zoom out just a little. I'm going to use this top tool. It's like a quick select tool, and I can increase the size of the brush. And all I'm going to do is try to select him. Now the computer is noticing the difference in color between him and the background. Now some parts it's going to have a little tough time with, like the hair, so you got to kind of help it out. You can make this brush smaller as you go down all these pieces and kind of connect everything together. Right? You'll notice as you get close to it, you can kind of see that difference a little bit better. So you can make that brush as small as you need and continue to add these pieces. Now, if it does that to you, where it grabbed way too much, you see it didn't leave this little spot, you can hit the subtract button up top and we could subtract out that nice little area right there. All right? And so you kind of go back and forth until you get it looking the way that you want. These buttons on the side, now what do these do? Once you kind of get the basic setup and basic selection of your shape, you'll notice that there are going to be some mistakes. So this in the properties, if you go to view, you can view it in a few different ways. Onion skin, which lets you see some of what's going on in a different way. Overlay, you see it in red. On black, on white, black and white, layers. So you can kind of pick the one that you like the best. I like the overlay one. And what happens here on the overlay one is, if you go to the third tool here, it looks like a little brush. And you basically can paint in your selection. So you can see here, I can just continue to paint, almost like I'm using a brush. And I can make that selection exactly as I want it. All right, the hands look good, the ball looks good. This little piece by his hair doesn't look so great, so I'm going to hit subtract, and I'm going to get rid of that piece. A little easier to see when it's in red. Go back to add that little chunk. Everything's looking pretty good right there. So if you look from far away, it looks like I colored the whole thing in red. It's only because we're seeing it in this overlay mode. Then from there, you can change the radius, and you can, if I zoom into the edge of the ball there, you can kind of see if I change the radius of it, it messes with the edge. If I change the smoothness, that will mess with the edge. All of these settings basically will mess with the edge. All right, but you can kind of adjust them to your liking. And then here at the bottom, output to a selection. We'll just work with selections right now. We'll talk about layer masks later. So just a selection and hit OK. Now if I look from far away, you see what it did? It made a perfect selection, just like all our other shapes of it. And we should be able to right-click, Layer via Cut, and there we are, with him nicely cut out for us. All right. Layer 11, we can get rid of. We can just click, drag, and drop to the trash, and we're all good. Last and final one. If you turn everything else back on and you hide your background, you should have this. The last one is the logo. So click on the background, rectangular marquee tool, click and drag around this piece, right-click, layer via cut, hide the background. So now for this one on layer 13, what we want to do, and your guess is as good as mine, there's a few different tools we could use, right? I would suggest the magic wand tool because it selects a solid color. I'm going to do a tolerance of 50, it's fine. I'm going to click on the white, and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to do Command D to deselect. Now you'll notice there is some white inside the letters here. So all you have to do is click inside the letters. You can hold Shift to make multiple selections, and then just hit delete again. And there it is. Nice and clean for you. All right. At that point, if you want to color anything in, change colors to anything, what you can do is use the regular paint bucket here. You can choose a color, and you can go right onto any of these pieces if you're on that layer, and you can just simply fill them right in. Right. Also, any of these pieces that you have, you can double click the layer to get to layer styles. So I'll show you what that looks like, and then we're done with the video. So this layer right here, you double click, you'll see layer styles pops up. Now from there you can do any of these things, and additionally you can add any of these things to it. So as you click on them, it adds it to the list. You click on the word, and you can control it here on the side. So if I went to normal, and I change the color, and then I increase the size, the spread, and the whole thing, right? You start to see it in a different way. You see what's happening there? I can go to bevel and emboss. I can click on different kinds of emboss. I can change the size and the depth and the softness and the contours and everything. You can kind of change everything about whatever it is that you've cut out on any layer that you want. You could do a color overlay. Choose a different color. Mess with those settings. Play with the blending modes. And you get a lot of different looks based on what you pick. All right? And then when you hit OK, you'll notice that it applies those effects and it lists them for you inside the layer. You can hide it kind of here so you see it small, or you can open it up. If you don't like them, you can close the little eyeball next to the word effects and you'll see it without it. If you don't like the effects at all, you can click and drag the word effects down into the trash can and they're gone. All right, that's it for your cutouts, and we'll be starting our collage project right after this.